So, I was thinking about how I could share with you my story. This is something that is being asked often. This is the school where I went in 5th and 6th grade. This is where I actually gave my first kiss in this school. So high school was, you know what? I hated school. So, listen, nowadays you need school, it's important and stuff. Finish your school, that's what I can tell you. And if you decide not to finish your school, but my friend, you may as well have lots of will and not afraid to work. Because nowadays, if you don't have school degrees, it's a bit more difficult than when it was my time. So this here was my high school. Secondaire Grande Rivière. So I did my secondary 1 and 5. So it's the equivalent of my 7th grade and my 12th grade. And in between that, I was actually in private schools. So this is the high school that I did my last year of school ever. And this is also the school that I never graduated from. And the reason why I did not graduate, you want to hear that? I think it's important. End of school year, I had 3 exams left to do, and I get called up in the meeting. And in the meeting there was 7 people, some of the teachers and also the directors, and they're all sitting at that table. I remember 7 of them. They asked me one question is, why is it that you have twice as more absences than what's allowed? And I tell them, I say, well, yeah, sure, I'll tell you why. It's very simple, because I already work, and it's true. You know, I was, 15, 16. I tell them, I say, I work as a busboy, and in order to make it in Ottawa at Café Casablanca, where I was working as a busboy, I said, I need to take the last bus at 3 o'clock, so I would miss the last course. I thought they would think it was great, you know, and so, oh, well, this is unacceptable, and you'll have to do adult school this summer in order for us to let you do your math, English, and French ministry test. And that's it. I turned around and I left. So obviously I never did my exams, I never graduated, I never had my ball, and that's what I decided. But there's a nice story to it. And when I actually owned my first restaurant, those people, those teachers and directors, they actually became some of my best customers for every birthdays, for Christmas. They would always book their parties there in my restaurant, and they were so proud. So I was born in Montreal. My father left my mother when I was very young. My father being in the restaurant business. Actually, all of my uncles, grandfather, family-related people are in the restaurant business. So that is very relevant down the road in my start of career and what I started in, obviously, restaurant business. My first business was when I was 6 years old, where I was actually borrowing pennies from my mom on lunchtime when I was going to have lunch at the apartment. So I was borrowing pennies, going to the corner store, buying some 5-cent chewing gum and selling it back to my colleagues in school. I just wanted to stop in this place over here because it has a very special place in my life. At Le Jardin du Château, this is the name of this place. It's basically the gardens of the castle. This is an actual castle in which people used to live. So we actually moved here. We actually lived in 3 of those houses, and this is basically the last house that I lived with my parents, because this is where at 15 they actually kicked me out. And the reason why is that at 15 I was working in nightclubs, and I was getting home very early in the morning, like at 4 or 5 a.m. And my parents just felt that this was like unacceptable at 15. So I got kicked out and got into my first apartment with 6 of my friends. So we were 7 guys, and we actually rented out a penthouse. So that was cool for like 8 months. So this place over here, the castle, this is nice because it's a centre récréatif. So there's pool tables, there's a small bar, there's a swimming pool, summertime, people play bridge. So we actually had some really nice evenings with my friends at a younger age. Basically, this is where I learned to play pool. This tower was also built in the same time as those houses. Many of my friends lived in that tower, and that tower has a special place for me, has a special meaning, I should say, for me. When I got kicked out, I didn't have no place to stay actually, and the 27th floor became my bedroom for one night. So I went into the stairs all the way up. I had just no place, no idea where to go. And I knew that building pretty well. So I went up in the staircase up to the last floor, and I actually used my running shoes as a pillow. And I remember trying to sleep and just seeing that bulb light. And I said to myself, you know what, son of a gun, this will never happen again. So this tower has, it reminds me of that reality. And you know what? This is a big checkpoint in your life because you have the choice to go right or left, to go crooked or to go straight, to basically become a bum, or to give yourself a kick in the ass and go to work. And I decided to fucking give myself a kick in the ass and go to work. And funny enough, over here, all of this area was a big field where we used to play football and run, and it was just like all nature here and big trees. And actually, this is part of the real estate that today I own. So it's like friggin' cool, man. All right, so we are just leaving Les Jardins du Château, and you know, at 11 years old, I was working summertime in my father's restaurant. He had a barbecue chicken place, rotisserie with pizza and stuff in Montreal, and I was doing those boxes for his pizza and French fries and stuff like that. And when we moved here in Les Jardins du Château, when I got to be around 12, 13 years old, I was already babysitting. So, you know, I was trying to look and to find a way of making a bit of money. So babysitting was one thing back then. I had my paper route. Yeah, I was delivering Le Droit paper. Also, I was working as a dishwasher. And we're just getting to that little restaurant where I worked, and it used to be called Le Nichet. Le Nichet, Nicolas was the owner. That restaurant and this building became many restaurants. It basically turned many times, and it's not really big, and it's right over here. I actually served my first coffee. He allowed me to go in the front of the dining room. My parents, my mother and François, came and have lunch, and he allowed me to serve them coffee. And man, once I got to the table, I'm not even sure if there was any coffee left in the cup. So much I was shaking, but you know what? I had to do it. This is it, you know? So I worked in this building here, which is a big hotel, Crown Plaza. I worked here when I was 18. That was pretty cool. It was a nice restaurant back then. It was one of the 5-star restaurants where we were doing the rack of lamb, Chateaubriand, crêpes Suzette, Dover sole at the table, you know. So I loved being at the table and just doing all that work in the front of the customers. So that was, I would say, yeah, that was probably more when I was like 20, yeah, back from Montreal. Yeah. So this is the Duportage Street, and I wanted to share this with you because Duportage Street is the street which was happening back in the days. It was where all the nightclubs were. It was like the main strip. And at 15 years old, I actually worked in several of the nightclubs. Yes, back then you didn't need to wait that you were 16 or 18 to work. If you wanted to work, they would give you a chance. So I worked over here in this building. So this place over here used to be called the Chalimard. And I was a busboy here at 15. And it was a nice club. I was in charge of stacking the bars, making sure that the fridge were full, the ice, the juices, all of that, giving a hand to the waiters and stuff. Over here in this building, there was the Tabasco, and also it became the Helium. Those were the biggest and hottest nightclubs back in the days. So I worked in this place as well. And Alegria today is a restaurant, and it's one of my ex-employee restaurant, Alex Gomez. And I'll tell you about Alex Gomez, but I'm so happy for him that he's successful and he was able to open his own restaurant. And over here as well, in this little building here, it used to be the Vogue. It used to be an incredible nightclub, and the Vogue was on 2 floors, super nice, very classy. And so this was my hub. This is where I worked when I was 15, 16, nightclubs in the bars. And yeah, so my trajectory from the nightclubs over here, I went and worked at Café Henri Berger. From Café Henri Berger, I went to try to work in Montreal as a waiter. And back in the days, it was the best restaurant called Les Halles of Montreal. I worked in Montreal for about 2 years, and sadly enough, my best friend, Max Ruellan, killed himself that summer in a motorcycle accident just beside Les Jardins du Château, just beside where we used to live. I was totally demolished, so I left Montreal, came back in the region here. This is where I worked at the Crown Plaza in a restaurant, worked in a few restaurants over here, and had the opportunity to come and manage a small restaurant here that eventually I purchased. But what I'm wanting to share with you here is the area in which I started my career in restaurant business as owner of a restaurant. Many people says, oh, you know, OB Prestige, I want to have the same dealership and it's all prestigious and it's all nice and this and that. But you know what? You don't start like that unless you have better tricks or a fortune in the bank. But this is not how usually you build businesses. You need to start from the ground up. And this neighborhood, Eddy Street in Hull, is very, very poor. It's one of the poorest sector. So you see the houses, how they are. I mean, they're old houses in bad shape. And the entire street is like that. And imagine, it looks pretty good now because the city invested a lot of money to revamp it, but it's a hard corner. It's a corner where there's lots of poverty, there's lots of drugs, there's lots of prostitution, and that's basically the corner that I decided to basically go and open my restaurant in. So every day, for 12 years, this is what I was seeing. And trust me, it was a big downer. You know, yes, I was proud of owning my restaurant at 25. When I first bought that restaurant, it was, they were doing pizzeria, a bit of eclectic sandwiches, stuff like that. When I took it, I worked for those guys for maybe a year. They gave me the opportunity to buy the place. I had a bit of money. I gave them a down, they financed me, I really appreciate it. So I own my little restaurant and I decided to basically make it into a French restaurant. This is my background, French cuisine. This area actually is so much better today than what it was, but I'm gonna show you the building. in which I spent 12 years of my life, 100 hours a week. And here it is, right here on the corner. So this is the building in which I spent 12 years of my life. This was my first restaurant. I started in this building at the age of 23 about. I only had 17 seats in the dining room, and I was paying expensive rent. And the best thing for me to do, seeing that my rent for that little thing there in this area, in a couple of years, I checked my lease and it was like going to be $2,000 a month. I said, this can't be. So I said, I may as well buy the building, which actually which I did. And you know what? Not because I had money, it's because I really wanted to basically own my building, because it didn't make sense to pay $2,000 rent for that small area when I could basically own my own building. So what I did back then is I asked around and found an individual that basically I was able to borrow money from. It was at 15% interest rate. But you know what? Because he allowed me to basically borrow money from him, I was able to buy this building. I had 2 tenants on the top. There was a third one on the bottom. So these rents made up that I had enough money to pay my mortgage and also my second mortgage. Eventually what I did is I was able to basically take the entire first floor of this building and made it into a 70-seater. A very wise man in investment once said, you need to be well diversified. You should basically invest in stock market, in precious metals as gold and silver, physical, like you own, real estate, art, and also automobile. And he says, you know, if in one of those sectors drops, you have the others to support it. If one goes down, the other one goes up. Real estate is something that, as you know now, from a young age, from 25 years old, well, as an adult now, and being in real estate, this is my latest accomplishment. This is the Vibe, which I basically build with my partner, Pierre Boulet. It's the first building in Gatineau which is LEED. So this is a very high criteria of build. It's green. I mean, this is a very, very nice building. We have actually those 2 towers, 188 apartments. So I mean, you know what? You don't start here. You start with small, crummy, not so nice. You rebuild it, you know, you fix it up, you rent it out, you make a bit of money, and down the road you're able to do other investments and you flip it, and then eventually you can buy something like this, and then this is going to be for their kids, you know? So after doing 10 years in the restaurant business, it was time for me to do something else, and I had a really good plan. My plan was to basically have kids, for my wife to go and work, I would take care of the kids, and I would go to the gym. Because guess what? I actually fancy working out, but in the restaurant business period, I totally forgot about myself. I was the reward eater, so I was rewarding myself at the end of the night by eating. Now it was my turn to eat, so I gained a bit of weight. I was out of shape. I was only like 33, 34, 35, and I said, I need to get back in the gym. So this is where at 35, selling the restaurant, I say, this is perfect. You know, I'm gonna go and work out, take care of the kids. I had a bit of money aside. I had a couple of real estate buildings that was bringing a bit of money. I thought I had it figured out. And my father actually was very, very sick. My ex-wife was pregnant with my son. My father passed away, never being able to see and meet my son. My father basically never was able to pay pension to my mother, never really took care of us. My father passing away, and without knowing it, what happened is that there was somebody there, triggered something, that I was able to meet in Paris, Dr. Tantian. All of that goes back to my father passing away during his funerals and stuff. I ended up meeting Dr. Tantien in Paris. That became my partner for Ideal Protein. He says to me when I was working out at the gym and he was playing racquetball, he says, oh, you're in shape. I say, yeah, I like to work out and I eat lots of protein. He says, oh, well, you know, protein, I know very well. We actually have a manufacturer in Quebec. I say, are you kidding me? I live in Quebec. Meeting with the GM and the owners of the manufacturer, Mr. Benlulu, who are you? What do you do? Why are you here? I said, well, I'm a restaurant owner. I want to basically do some big jugs of protein with you guys, get one of the strong men to endorse it and sell it to gyms. So they look at me and says, wow, okay. Not very exciting, I guess, they thought. Doing the tour, I was like, this is like, whoa, this is another level. And we stopped in front of the packaging machine, and this is where I had the aha moment. Whoa, imagine how cool that would be if it would be my brand on that machine. And in the same time, I'm thinking about this and saying this to myself, the GM to my right says, oh, Mr. Benlulu, all the families that got into the protein diet business in Europe made it huge. And then I have Dr. Trentien to my left, precursor of the protein diet in Europe. I say, okay, well, you know what? I say, I'm in. What you guys are doing here, protein and stuff, I'm gonna take this protein and I'm gonna open the Canadian market. So I tell those guys at the manufacturer that I'm interested to do this. Okay, perfect, we'll send you some products. First thing you know, I'm at my house on a weekday and I see a friggin' truck coming in and basically opening the door in the back, and they actually bring out a huge skid of products and they just put it in my friggin' in my driveway. So that was my order, it came in. What do I do? So I actually converted my living room into my, and I don't know if I still have those pictures with me. I hope so. Yes, I always carry them. So those pictures, this is my living room that basically I had the products and repackaging them because the packaging was terrible. So this is me back in the days, my ex-wife, my little son Sam that you've seen in videos, which is like I was 6'1", 6'2". So once we outgrew my living room, this is my first warehouse. So right now we can't really see in it, but you can just imagine yourself another, I would say 100 feet. This is pretty much the width, maybe just a bit larger. It was an old mechanic bay. It's all cement, it was very straightforward. So this building, me and my partner purchased a couple of years back. So we went from my living room to the 1,500 square feet warehouse. Then we almost took the entire building over there. And then we purchased this over here and remodeled it and made it into Ideal Protein headquarters. And it's also the facility where we have all of the inventory for Canada and where we're doing all of our shipping for Canada. I'm using this spot to be able to park one of my trailers from Obi Prestige. We got extra room covered for the winter. So instead of letting the rig just basically get snow piled up on the top of it, I'll bring them over here. So this is the warehouse for Ideal Protein, for the Canadian warehouse, where we do all the shipping. So you see, you don't have to start big like this. And if I may, I'm going to walk you through here. Comment vas-tu? La forme, toi, oui? Cool. See those people? They've been employees of mine for like 10 years. So this is where it started. Some of the first pictures that you see of my cars, and back then I had some muscle cars. I loved muscle cars. I actually started my collection with muscle cars. Oh boy, beautiful, beautiful cars. I still have a few, but yeah. So this was the first Obi Prestige Auto Garage. Yeah. And from here to other locations to eventually what you guys know as Obi Prestige Auto. So you're asking me, oh, how you started? Well, I started here, and so do you. When you start your company with one skid that's being delivered at your house, and after 15 years, it's still going strong, and this is what you have, you know what? You know that you did something right. But 15 years on the road, I was for this company. I did not get to see Samuel or Alice basically grow up. How many birthdays I missed, how many anniversaries, how many Christmas I was there in and out, because these moments that I never got to spend with them, I will never get them back. If I wouldn't have to do it again, I would do it again. And I'll tell you one thing is that at 50 years old, to work 100 hours a week and to build a business from scratch, man, if I have to do it because I need to do it, okay, maybe I would do it, but it's not the same thing than when you're 20 or 30. Go all out now. If you have the energy, you're in your prime time, go at it. Don't even think about it. Move. You know, I started as dishwasher and then I ended up basically owning my restaurant, actually 2 restaurants. I started with some small apartment buildings, not too nice, not too fancy. And today I was able to access some of the nicest real estate in the region. I started this business out of my living room, and now we're able to basically have a huge warehouse and part of the most nicest facility for this kind of business. And we also own our manufacturer in Lévis. Dealership, I started out of a small garage like this, small warehouses, and OB Prestige came along. So the moral behind that is, you know what? Hard work pays off, and there's nothing wrong to start maybe smaller and work your way up. Stay proud, stay humble. You know, with your evolution, no matter how big your success is or no matter how big your bank account is, stay who you are, stay humble, be nice with people, be kind, you know, be somebody that will inspire others, not the people that will look and say, oh, look at what money does, that's terrible. No, it's not supposed to do that. Share your knowledge. So I wish you guys the best. Huh? Chop chop. And no high school degree. That's what we're able to do here.